What's up, everybody? Blake the Scholar of Magic here, and today we are very privileged to bring you Greasefang, Okiba Boss, with some new upgrades. So yeah, upgrades for sure. So Greasefang is a 1 colorless, 1 plains, 1 black, legendary creature rat pilot. At the beginning of combat in your turn, return target vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of your next end step. So obviously a good graveyard commander, let's think about like kind of steps, right? There are certain cards, even commanders, right? They enable certain functions. Some like generate tons of mana, like say for Asusa and Maria. Those cards do very well of like providing mana on, uncharacteristically high efficiency, right? Whereas like, if you want to access the graveyard, for instance, with a card like Maria, you might have to go through a couple steps. You might have to like bring in cards like Goblin Welder or Goblin Engineer. Maria herself isn't going to take things from the graveyard, okay? But she certainly enables cards to do things more efficiently, right? But Greasefang, on the other hand, is the kind of card that's going to go right into that graveyard if that's the thing that you want to access. And it's going to get you that value. The prerequisite is literally just casting this card, having it stick on the battlefield, and having a vehicle in your graveyard at the time of combat. So in terms of like bringing like, efficiency to your game plan, this is the card to have, especially if you want to really go into the graveyard. So let's think about like some of the newer cards that have come out that definitely like give this card support. And this card like really kind of just brings it like kind of all together for us, because think about the fact that we can entomb not only artifacts, but we can also entomb creatures now, like basically on command with a Cynical Loner. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure this is tapped, whether it attacks into an easy target where it doesn't die, or we just simply tap it with a vehicle. Then we can move to our second main phase after that combat. And then we can entomb, for instance, a vehicle. We can put a creature, any card of our choice. It's a great card, and you can just kind of get repeatable value out of it. So not only can it be useful at that 3 power to crew our vehicles, which most of our vehicles do have that like 3 power requisite. It could also just put in those things from our library, like any of our choice. It's just really good, and it kind of really enables our game plan to open it up, not just to vehicles, but to creatures as well. So that's what we like about the Cynical Loner. Additionally, we have cards like Ripples of Undeath, and this is a newer card from Modern Horizons 3. This thing just mills a lot of cards into our graveyard. And what's nice about this is you can also pay colorless and 3 life, and you can put one of those cards that you milled from the 3 back into your hand. So just some really nice selection here, and it's repeatable. So we just love it. We just love cards like this. This is just amazing. People, who like the graveyard love cards like this. It's really like getting to the point like, well, what are you going to print next? Like, there's so much support for like all these things, especially like, you notice like even blue, like, Founding of the Third Path and the Prankster. All those kind of cards that support like graveyard shenanigans, like the graveyard just gets stronger and stronger. Of course, the graveyard hate is there, which is good. So there's good balances. And we do have that balance in our deck ourselves, but it's just amazing kind of how much support you get for the graveyard and all the value you can get from it. Here's a newer card from Dustmourn. And this one is a very cool one, guys, because it's just a nice removal spell. I mean, we can bring this out and like snipe something with toughness 5 or less. Opponent gets to manifest something, manifest dread from the top of their deck, but that's not so bad. They basically get to, choose between 2 cards from the top of their library. And if they get a creature out of that, so be it. But this is nice because, like, for instance, you can hit a Sheldred with this, and that's really nice. So screw Sheldred, and let's get into the hover ship, and let's dude, it's arrived, dude. That's what I was gonna think for the title of this video, like the mothership has arrived. So it has arrived, and the unidentified hover ship is definitely that really nice selection for us that we can just cast, or we can have it come from the the graveyard and get some value that way too. So those are some of the newer cards. And of course, what would a Greasefang deck be without vehicles? So here's just kind of like the vehicle suite that I like to kind of utilize with this particular deck. We have the Unlicensed Hearse, which is beautiful here in the this is the Outlaws of Thunder Junction set. So that's a nice one there, of course. And this is just a nice selection because we definitely want to play the bigger vehicles, but we also want to play the lower costed vehicles as well, especially utility ones like Surge Hacker Mech, for instance, really loves to see other vehicles on the battlefield. And if you just have big bombs, you know, you're not going to get all that value that you want out of those certain vehicles. So it is important to kind of put an abundance of vehicles and the ones that are going to be utility vehicles as well. So like Unlicensed Hearse comes to mind with that. Additionally, a Smuggler's Copter will definitely fit that bill. So that was also a nice one. And this one is very good, especially because it gets us to draw and discard into our from our library and into the graveyard. So that will definitely keep the vehicles going into our graveyard and give us that selection for our hand as well. That's really definitely important for the Greasefang deck, is like kind of the putting into the graveyard, definitely. Here's a Reckoner Bankbuster, and this is just a nice two mana spell. Of course, vehicle, and of course we can draw with this too. We can get some value from drawing. So I do love the Bankbuster, and it's just a nice thing. You can even resurrect this with you know, and have it, you know, come on the battlefield and do 4 damage. So it's not a really big deal. So cool card overall in general for us. Here's the Colossal Plow. This is probably one of the better 2-drops that we have, like out of the the lot. And this one is really cool because it's, when it attacks, you actually get to add 3 planes and you gain 3 life. I really like that life gain too. The 3 planes is fine too. But honestly, the life gain can come in handy sometimes. Sometimes you'd be like, oh, I just need to resurrect the plow. You know, like for instance, what if you have like a Bolas Citadel out? You know, you want to like recoup some of that life. The Colossal Plow can do that. And it's a big body. It's a 6/3. Just have to meet that crew 6 cost for it. Of course, you have to think about all these vehicles. They come in hasted with Greasefang. So that's kind of like a big pull, is that they all come in hasted. So they're just ready to go when Greasefang summons them from the graveyard. So here's Mukotai Soul Ripper, another vehicle here. You may sacrifice another artifact or creature. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on Mukotai Soul Ripper and it gains menace until end of turn. So just another nice body, and also menacing, right? If you attack and do sacrifice. So you know what's so interesting about the Soul Rippers? You can play it like on curve. Maybe, for instance, you entomb like a Parhelion, for instance, right? And then you go ahead and on turn 2, you play your Mukotai Soul Ripper. And then we go into Greasefang. And then Greasefang, of course, brings out the Parhelion. And then what we can do there is you could probably, and you know, at the very least, you want to get the Mukotai Soul Ripper to like kind of get in there, right? I'm just thinking if there is a way to like basically crew both at once. But I suppose you would actually require like another body. But so that's not the best example. But what is good about the Mukotai Soul Ripper is that if you did have, like, for instance, a Mukotai Soul Ripper and a Parhelion both crewed and attacking, you could stack those triggers so that the Soul Ripper actually sacrifices the Parhelion. You'd still get the Angels. You would miss out on that five flying damage from the Parhelion, but you'd still get the Angel trigger. So you'd have those 2/4/4s with Vigilance attacking. And then, of course, you get your Parhelion back into your graveyard. So that's what's kind of nice about the Mukotai Soul Ripper. Those effects are very good, and I'll talk about them a little bit more too, like with like High Market and Phyrexian Tower. As long as you have continuous ways to put like those vehicles, important vehicles, back in the graveyard, that's always helpful. All right, so here's the Peace Walker Colossus. One of the better vehicles overall, just the fact that it's just a menacing 6/6 for the 3. And then, of course, that 1 in the planes to just make any vehicle you control become an artifact creature. This is definitely a game finisher. It's definitely won games for me. You know, have a Peace Walker Colossus come out, and then all of a sudden I'm crewing all my vehicles that are not summoning sick anymore. And they're just, they don't have to crew another body, the power, power 4 or whatever. whatever the crew cost is. So that's another thing about vehicles, maybe that I didn't explain, is like the crew cost. So tap any number of creatures you control with total power 4 or more, this vehicle becomes an artifact creature. So basically the vehicles kind of sit to the side, and when you're ready for them to either attack or block, you'd have to tap a creature that was already on the battlefield with a power 4 or more to have this come onto the battlefield and kind of interact with those creatures that don't require crewing and such, and they're just sitting on the battlefield themselves. So vehicles are very interesting in that manner. They're just kind of sitting with your other artifacts and just waiting to be crewed until they can to do the attacking or blocking. So this one would just have that low cost. You wouldn't even have to go through crew costs. Basically, you'd have to just kind of ignore that crew for the crew costs for your other vehicles when you activate this, and then all of a sudden you have your vehicles slamming in. So it's just a really nice one, and you just have to pay mana for it. Here is the Cultivator's Caravan. So this one is also just a beauty. I love the 3 costs here. It's just such a good utility one. You know, tap this thing for mana readily. It's like one of those really interesting like 3 mana rocks, you know, that like can just tap for mana immediately, a mana of any color. And then of course you can just crew this and have it become a 5/5 body. It's just like, wow, this thing is very utilitized. It's very nice, guys. It's one of my favorite vehicles for sure. Not my favorite though. You'll see what my favorite is soon. So here's the Weatherlight, and this is also just a really good one as well. So what's cool about Weatherlight is that you can just, you know, have this come in from the graveyard, you hit in with it, and then you look at the top 5 cards of your library and they reveal a historic card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are historic. So yeah, you look at those top 5 cards, you know, find an artifact that you really like amongst those, or a legendary creature, or a saga, and you just go ahead and put it in your hand. It's just really cool card. The selection is big, and of course you go in with flying. You hit in for some flying damage in the air. What a boss. Here's the Surge Hacker Mech. This is the card that aforementioned just really loves other vehicles, especially those lower costed vehicles. And when you have a Surge Hacker Mech going, if you guys know or are familiar with a Surge Hacker Mech, this thing is so annoying. Like, it can just really start dealing damage like continuously. You just have this thing coming down on the battlefield doing 6 to something. You know, have 2 other artifacts on the battlefield. A Surge Hacker Mech counts itself. Then you're doing 6 to a target creature or planeswalker. And then, for instance, you just repeat the process, get it back into your graveyard, repeat, you know, and you're getting that repeatable value, and it's a menacing 5/5. So it's just like one of my faves for sure. All right, here's the Smuggler's Buggy, and this one is just fantastic, guys. It's going to be one of your favorites because you're just going to go ahead and summon this from the graveyard and hide away 4. You're going to crew it for that low cost of 2. You're going to deal combat damage to somebody because, like, who wants to block this sucker? You know, it's especially on an early sequence. I mean, it's going to get in. And then you get to play one of those hideaway cards without paying its mana cost. It's like, whoa. I mean, looking at the top 4, that's some nice selection. You just get to cast it. That's even better, right? So it's hasty. It's going to come on the battlefield. It's going to slam in, and you're going to get that value. So you're going to love the Smuggler's Buggy. Definitely not a 16-cent card here. Definitely acts more like a $30 or $40 card. Nautiloid Ship. This is one of those ones that is just going to be really frustrating for your opponents. You're going to be able to exile like their graveyard, which is just nice in general, because I mean that's like a Bujoka Bog effect. And then, of course, when this deals combat damage to player, you may put a creature card exiled with Nautiloid Ship onto the battlefield under your control. So it has to be exiled with a Nautiloid Ship. So, I mean, you're going to target your opponent's graveyard. Hopefully they have something nice in there. And then you get to put it on the battlefield under your control. See, people don't know about these vehicles. They're just like, there's something else, the Smuggler's Buggy and this Nautiloid Ship. They're just special cards, guys. Very special. And speaking of special, this is the most specialist. This is the specialist of the special, the Sky Sovereign console flagship. I've talked about this kind of a little bit before. It's just like a very battle cry, enter the battlefield type of card, and it's going to do so much value for you, whether it's coming from the graveyard or you're casting it for that low cost of 5. You're going to deal 3 damage to a target creature or planeswalker when it comes on the battlefield. Then, of course, when this thing attacks, it will do the same over and again, and it's 6 damage in the air. So it's just a massive amount of damage, guys. Talk about value. Night Paladin. When Night Paladin enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to each opponent. So that's 12 damage just for like casting this and that entering the battlefield. That's gas. And then look at that. Crew 1, trample 6/6. What? What is this thing, guys? This thing is nasty too. This thing is one of the nastiest. It gets nastier, trust me. Mysterious Limousine, 4/4. This thing's a token eater. You can eat your own stuff too. You know, if you want to like get more enter the battlefieldy stuff going, you know, or maybe one of your, you know, I don't know, like it just depends like when you want to do, especially if it's like going to pop back to your hand, you know, because that's something that it can do if we just summon it from the graveyard. So it can do a lot of different things, but it's just like it can also help you swing in for lethal sometimes. So that's really nice. You know, you can come in, eat a token or something, you know, of that nature, and then have it come in and attack and, you know, eat another target creature your opponent's control. So it just vanishes for the turn and you can swing in for lethals. So there's different things you can do with this limo, and I just like it. So there's that. Okay, so I put the Bola Citadel here for a reason. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to have your Oswald Fiddlebender, and you're going to get one of these aforementioned five mana cards here, right? And we're going to sacrifice it. We're going to sacrifice it with Oswald, and we'll get Oswald out here in a second. But basically what Oswald does, yeah, I have it organized. So Oswald Fiddlebender is going to let you sacrifice an artifact for a plains and a tapping himself, and it will find an artifact in your library with 1 cost more than that artifact's casting cost, and you can put it right on the battlefield. So we go ahead and sacrifice our limo, for instance, and all of a sudden we're going to have ourselves a Bola Citadel on the battlefield. And when we have this, we're going to be able to do a lot and cast a lot of things, because with this card, we can look at the top card of our library anytime and play lands and cast spells from the top of our library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. So a lot of free casting here, you know, whether with paying life or just like getting the payoff of like, you know, having this certain criteria met. And the haste just really helps with all this too, guys, with the vehicles. And of course, a nice Oswald with this, your artifact synergy and getting into a Bola Citadel is fantastic. Here's a Cybership, just another big bomb, an 8/8 in the air. We'll also make Cyberman artifact creatures, which is nice. We like to make artifact creatures, and those help crew later, so Cybership's great for us. Here's the Thunderhawk Gunship. This is one of more of the pricey vehicles, like 13 bucks. But once again, when this attacks, all the creatures we control gain flying until end of turn, which is amazing. Because, I mean, flying is such a cheating keyword. Where we can evade so much danger with flying. It's basically akin to trample. The Pride Wind, so there's that as well. Kind of a interesting card here. This one will actually make non-token artifact creatures, or if it will actually make a human knight 2/2 creature token if we cast a non-token artifact creature while this is still on the battlefield. So for instance, we resurrect this with Greasefang, and then we play, for instance, a non-token artifact such as an Esper Sentinel. Then we'll make a 2/2 human white knight creature token. So lots of artifact synergy here. I think you guys are going to really like this iteration. You're going to see a lot of familiar cards here, like the Necro Monolith that helps us mill more cards when it attacks. And so it's just like a great enabler, great entomb target for us in the early game to kind of keep our graveyard gas going. You have the Reaver Titan here, which can just like end games, because when it attacks, it deals 5 damage to each opponent, and it's a 10/10 with protect from mana value 3 or less. And if you do this on an early enough sequence, you can really like basically do -15 to an opponent pretty fast, and then -5 to each of your other opponents, because they won't have a mana value creature that can block that has a mana value 4 or more, or right, 4 or more. So that's a nice one there. And then of course you have the Parhelion, And this is just obviously our OG card. This is the one you want to just resurrect on your casual commander night and just like go to town and really like kill the goblins. Go for the goblins' throat. Get them. And then this just leads right into our removal. So that was our artifact suite there with our vehicles. And then, of course, we have our bone shards here, shiny bone shards. I definitely want to bling out this deck, so I'm kind of like starting that up. Definitely kind of, got there with a couple of these cards already, like, the cyber ship and such, but that'd be really cool to do. So bone shards is good, of course, because it can just selectively discard like a vehicle in our hand, which is nice. We can also like sacrifice a vehicle that we want to go back into the graveyard. So we can do both of those things at once. Bitter Triumph will just do the discard effect, which is nice for us. And or we could just pay the life depending on what we want to do. Rite of Oblivion has that similar effect where we sacrifice a creature, get the vehicle back into our... What happens is vehicles become creatures once they're accrued. So we can go ahead and sacrifice. You can, and the Rite of Oblivion can be whether it's crewed or not. So we can also sacrifice with the Rite of Oblivion, get it back into our graveyard, get that value and have the flashback. This is just an exiling non-land permanent in general. Woo, baby. Meat Hook Massacre, just sweet removal for us because you have to see that we're mostly vehicle centered. So we don't care too much about hitting the board because we have a lot of our value sitting off to the side. So the Meat Hook Massacre and Toxic Deluge fit right in. Got some value in our lands with Haggard Mauling and Fail the Profane. Blood on the Snow for just a mass board wipe and bringing back, we might not have like 4 or 5 snow, but we'll probably have 3 for like to bring back our commander. So Blood on the Snow seems fitting. And then Okiba Reckoner Raid is probably one of the best cards in the deck. Just the fact on chapter 3, and I will turn this over. I know you all want me to start inner sleeving, so that will also be a next step. But this one is great because it'll give all our vehicles menace. So that's just another like crazy keyword. Like it's gonna like let us finish games so much faster. So there's the Okiba Reckoner Raid. Yeah. All right. Okay, there was part of another one from the artifact suite was this. The Portal to Phyrexia, of course. And this is, like I said, this is just like another Oswald Fiddlebender masterpiece, right? So we have our Parhelion, we have Oswald, and then we go ahead and want the Parhelion back in the yard, that's fine. We'll use Oswald to do so, and then we'll have a Portal to Phyrexia come on the battlefield in exchange. It's just like, there's really nothing else you can say about it. It's just like the ultimate end game for us. And I see it, honestly, like, let's just cast the Portal of Phyrexia. Who cares? Like, what if our game goes a little bit longer? Let's just cast it. So who cares? It's all good. All right. Here's like our sneaky enablers to build our graveyard sooner than later. So we could take a land tax if we have it in our opening hand, for instance, and we can start putting like 3 basics into our hand at the beginning of our upkeep. And then on end step, we can, start discarding vehicles into our graveyard. It's perfect, guys. I love land tax. Great for this deck. We have Entomb. And here's Entomb. So Entomb is great because we just go ahead and search our library for a card, put that card in the graveyard, then shuffle. So it's just like an easy selection. Go grab the Parhelion, go grab a Reaver Titan, a Necron Monolith, whatever you want to go get. Entomb it. Even a Smuggler's Buggy if you want to get really wild. Here's a Shriekhorn. And this is, of course, is that really good rate. We're looking for cards with good rates. So this is a good rate because we're going to get 2 cards each time we tap this. So we could have 4 cards by the time we come back to our second turn with this. So that's nice. We can definitely get some cards into our graveyard and basically 6 within a 2-turn cycle, which is good. A good rate for Greasefang. It'll give us enough looks so that we're pretty much guaranteed a vehicle most of the time. Mesric Orb is definitely one of those things that just helps you get there. Just helps you get the permanents into the graveyard. Palantir is also that really annoying card to play against, and we have such good big bombs in here like Valgavoth and Cityscape Leveler that if the opponent doesn't let us draw, they're going to enable us to really do what we want, which is build the graveyard and they're going to have a problem because they're going to lose a lot of life. So the Palantir of Orthanc is really good in that manner. Of course, you have the Strionic Resonator, and this is a card that you've all suggested for me to use, so of course we're going to do it. And instead of like having Greasefang go off twice, we can have it go, or once we can have it go on twice and copy its ability and have 2 vehicles come out at once. Or we can copy the ability of a Reaver Titan or a Knight Paladin. It's just like really up to us, like what exactly we want to do. Could even copy our freaking Parhelion and have like a bunch of angels slapping in when we attack. So just beautiful stuff, guys. Look at this Ashnod's Altar, guys. Look at it chilling there. Once again, this is such a great ability for us, is just to be able to sacrifice when we want to. We don't want to we don't want to be open-ended with our vehicles. We want to definitely have the ability to like recur them. You know, we don't want to have them one and done, because that could happen with Greasefang. You know, so you want to have a good amount of ways to sacrifice these things to get them back in your graveyard. Because if you just have them sitting in your hand, they're very expensive. So that's the kind of the give and take of the card. Village Rites is just that very simple card where you can imagine this would be a sequence that's correct. You entomb your Parhelion. You lead into an Arcane Signet. You hit all your land drops. On turn 3, you cast Greasefang. You resurrect your Parhelion. You do the thing, and then you Village Rites. And you get in some more gas. And then we are looking for more ways to keep that Parhelion back in the graveyard, right? You know, finding like a spirit, for instance, or a Guardian of Nubanali, or a Putrid Imp. Like any ways to keep those things going back into our graveyard is what we want to look for. Teleportation Circle would be one of those things. Have a Teleportation Circle down, and then of course we can have our Parhelion stick, and that'd be fantastic. Malika Rebirth, this would just give us a little bit of also reoccurring value. If we did have something that we were able to sacrifice, we could also Malika Rebirth it prior to that, and then sacrifice it and then have it come back. And that'd be another way for the thing to stick onto the battlefield. Or it just could be as like a defensive spell. And like resurrect our Greasefang or one of our other creatures. Agadeem's Awaken can get into our graveyard for our creatures. So that's just a nice land that can also act as a resurrection spell. Reanimate would not be for our vehicles. This would be for the creatures, because we are going to be putting a lot of stuff in our graveyard. So we want to be like diversified. So Reanimate could be one of those targets. Also Victimize could be as well. You know, we're going to want to have, you know, a couple creatures in our deck. And this would enable us to not only, bring out 2 of those creatures at once, it'd also be able to sacrifice that vehicle too, which is a very intriguing thing to me. So the criteria is that you would have to have 2 target creature cards. You couldn't just have 1, you'd have to have 2. So that would be the criteria. So that would be the thing to look out for Victimize. So we'll still test it out. If it doesn't work, we'll try something new. All right, guys, so let's just go over the creatures. You have Esper Sentinel here just as a nice form of card advantage, and it's an artifact, so it just works with our deck. These artifact creatures work well, like especially with like an Oswald Fiddlebender. If we want to get that train going with Oswald, these 2 could be sacrificed for like a Mesmeric Orb, for instance, and then we're off to the races. Stitcher Supplier, this is a good rate for milling cards, of course. Stinkweed Imp, if we get this in the graveyard, we can just start dredging instead of drawing on our draw step or when we draw cards. And that could just make our graveyard massive. Putrid Imp, this could selectively put cards into our graveyard at any time, which is really nice. Discard a card from your hand. Gains flying until end of your turn. Has also that threshold where it can get a little stronger. If we had 7 more cards in our graveyard, fantastic card. Fleeting Spirit, this is the aforementioned spirit that's very evasive, and it can just basically discard cards of our choosing into the graveyard at any time. The timing of this is on end step, so you just have to make sure that like you do it. If you want access to it, you just have to make sure that you're doing it prior to an end step. So you can do this during your opponent's, like right prior to their end step. You know, once their turn is like about to, move towards end step, you can just go ahead and do this during their second main phase. And, you could say prior to your end step, or, during your main phase, basically you can go ahead and just phase this thing out, put a card into your graveyard, and then it will be available for you at the when the opponent's end step does hit. So at the end steps. All right. Here's the Guardian of New Benalia. So there's that. And this is just another redundant way to like just put cards into our graveyard. You know what's cool about the Guardian too is it can like do the enlist, so you can get a really strong Guardian slamming in, like, you know, for instance, if you had like a Mukotai Soul Ripper come out randomly for the turn. And you know what's cool about that is you get a scry. So if you enlist and you attack, you scry. So that's nice. Scrying is good. We definitely need that kind of you know, selection in this deck. You know, we're not going to be drawing too many cards. Here's Oswald Fiddlebender, just the bomb. This card is dangerous, guys, real dangerous. So be on the look for the Oswald Fiddlebender because it's a really nasty and dangerous card. And you can sacrifice and basically just tutor up anything on any of those artifacts with equal to 1 plus the sacrifice artifact's mana value. Great, again, for those really high-cost vehicles. You can get to an early portal. So very good selection. An early Bolas Citadel, just a really good selection there. Braids just for, you know, tons of cards. Just sacrifice a vehicle on end step, and then, you know, your opponents must do the same. Sacrifice an artifact, or you draw a card, and they lose 2 life for each of those instances. So really good. Rankle. Oh my God, these creatures are just the bomb, guys. You're gonna love them. Rankle is such a good tempo player here. I'd have to say, if you can get into a Rankle and a Parhelion, you're gonna win. I'm just, if you can do that, if you can see who gets that 1, 2, 3, 4, which is possible. Like I said, you could have like the, you know, Parhelion slamming in with the Greasefang, and then if you go turn 4 with Rankle, slamming in with a Parhelion, and then you're sacrificing the Parhelion to Rankle, and all your other opponents have to sacrifice creatures, I'm pretty sure it's a good game in most casual formats. I'm pretty sure that kind of sequence is GG. So enjoy that. And if you you know, you can even have your opponents draw. I don't think it's a problem. You can all discard, you can all draw, and we love discarding with Greasefang, so you can do all the modes at once. It's great. Really sneaky group hug stuff. Sheldra, just because it's castable, and it's just to find a you know, resurrection target in general. It's just, you know, an $80 card, so it does its thing. This Sheldred is impressive. It's good for us too because we build the graveyards up. We can get some value out of our creatures. There's some nice enter the battlefield characteristics. So I do like these creatures as resurrection targets or just castable cards. Cityscape Leveler is a great you know, Oswald hit. Plus it's a great reanimation target too. It's just all the above. It just fits all those great things for us. So we love the Leveler. I thought Razaketh would be a fun choice to go along with Valgavoth, just because it sacrifices creatures, so it just kind of keeps that train going. If there's like kind of like that sequence of reanimate and we get vehicles on the board, we can have Razaketh sacrifice the vehicles instead, and then we can start tutoring for things that we want. I don't know, but I want to try it. And here's Valgavoth. Valgavoth. That has to be the best reanimation target right now, huh, guys? Look at that ward. Sacrifice 3 non-land permanents. What a boss. Yeah. Flying lifelink. 9/9. Jeez Louise. Okay. And then we have some just random ramp here. Just kind of the usual suspects. Cool? We're cool? Yeah, I'm cool. You don't need too much ramp with this deck. You just need to get the 3 mana, and you just need to have stuff in your graveyard. So here's High Market. This is the one where this card is going to let you sacrifice, which is just a really nice kind of ability for a land to have. This is very good value for us. This could save us in certain circumstances where we really need to have a way to put the vehicles back into our graveyard. So high market can definitely do that. It can just be like adding the 1 mana, which is fine. Otherwise, sacrifice a creature and gain a life. It's beautiful. Similarly, Phyrexian Tower is going to do the same. These don't come in tapped at all. They're beautiful lands, guys. High market, Phyrexian Tower. And then, yeah, sacrifice a creature, add 2 black. That's even stronger. I mean, you get the benefit of just adding that colorless mana, or you can add two black, which is amazing from the sacrifice creature. So you can even ramp into stuff. It's crazy. Yeah, Mech Hanger too. This is great for casting Greasefang because it casts pilots, so it's like basically a rainbow land. Additionally, it has that 3 and a tap, and it can make a vehicle become an artifact creature to bypass that crew cost, and so it can start attacking or blocking. So we love Mech Hanger. Just otherwise, just adds for that colorless. And then, of course, this is an interesting new card as a surveil land. So this could be the one where it like randomly entombs the Parhelion and makes your opponents cry. You know, like it could be that random, like any any extra juice that you can get to optimize and enable that ability to put things into your graveyard. That is exactly what we're looking for. And that is something that this land does. So we love it. Takenuma is similarly adding black or the channel. You can mill cards into your graveyard. Costs 1 less to cast for each legendary creature control. Fomori Vault. This one is the really cool one from the Outlaws of Thunder Junction, the big scores set. This one has a 3 and a tap. Discard a card. That's what we want to do. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of artifacts you control. Put one of those cards in your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So, of course, we have lots of artifacts in this deck. A ton, actually. So this is always going to be a good hit for us, and it enables that discard, so we love it. Cavern of Souls. Okay, so the uncounterability, we love it for whatever we want to do, probably for Greasefang. Castle Lothwain for a little bit of gas for our cards. We can tap this and draw cards. Urza Saga to get the the Shriekhorn or the Soul Ring for a little bit of rampy. Then we have like Amaria's Call to make some more angels. We love that. It's just a land, otherwise a land. We love these spells that cost mana. They're fantastic. Command Tower, City of Brass. These are all our nice rainbow lands here. Then we have some duels, some nice duels. Godless Shrine for Plains and Swamp. Painland, Marsh Flats, and here's our fetches. All match our colors, black and white. Just fantastic. And then we have a couple basics, about 4 each of each. And that's the deck, guys. So thank you for joining me. Like and subscribe if you like this. Share with your friends. Let them know. Greasefang's got some new tools. I'm sure you've seen them yourself, and they're all great. I'll definitely be swinging this out for the LGS. It's definitely ready. It's one of my babies, so really it's like this card probably gets a lot more attention than the others just because it plays so nicely. But it is also very similar to my Sauron the Necromancer deck. They're very similar, like they both get into the graveyard to some degree. This one doesn't require as much like resurrection spells for creatures because Greasefang does primarily a lot of the lifting with the vehicles. But I would say this one is like more art, maybe more graveyard centered than that. And I think the creatures are really nasty. Like Rankle is like so disgusting in this deck. So yeah, you're gonna love it. All this stuff is really great, and it all plays well. You can win in many different ways. So, some of the cards are less tested than others, I'd say. But, other than that, like I feel like they're all sound, So, especially the removal, of course, is just very good. And the vehicles, of course, are good. Like, you'll never be sad about this vehicle suite. I am very certain, guys, about, for now, for me, like, I mean, there is a lot of vehicles, but for me, like, these kind of mixture of big bombs and good enter the battlefield cards are just kind of where, in these little, like, techie vehicles, I feel like this is the way for Greasefang. I feel like it really is. I feel they all work together very well, and I think you'll be very satisfied. Ooh, yes, you will, with these artifacts. They're fantastic. Oswald Fiddlebender is definitely a key card. You're definitely going to want to include him, and definitely play test it if you're not a believer. All right, so that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed Greasefang, the Okiba Boss. Have a great day. Bye-bye.